Lot. Thanks everyone for coming on such a hot day. As Claire said, in the freezer there are ice treats if you're overheating, or even if you're not. I suppose what I wanted to get to today was a history of UNRWA and why it is so important for it to stay as it is. UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees in the Near East, is a specialised UN agency that provides Palestinian refugees with humanitarian aid, education, health and social services. It was initially established in 1949 to cater to the needs of 750,000 Palestinians ethnically cleansed from their homes by Jewish Zionist militias. Now, in this point, I say Jewish Zionist militias because currently we have Christian Zionists and Jewish Zionists. There are also other nationalities as well, but this was very much particular to 1948, and in America, one of the biggest fights we have is with Christian Zionists, of which there are 30 million. And if they all vote one way, they can turn an American election. But I'm specifically talking about the period just after World War II. So it was initially established in 1949 to cater to the needs of 750,000 Palestinians ethnically cleansed from their homes by Jewish Zionist militias in areas that currently form part of Israel. UNRWA operates in the occupied West Bank, East Jerusalem and Gaza, as well as in Jordan, Lebanon and Syria, the neighbouring countries where Palestinian refugees took shelter after their violent expulsion in 1948. UNRWA supports the relief and human development of Palestinian refugees, working in a number of areas: primary and vocational education, primary health care, relief and social services, infrastructure and camp improvement, microfinance and emergency response. UNRWA administers 58 official refugee camps, 8 in Gaza, 19 in the West Bank, 10 in Jordan, 9 in Syria and 12 in Lebanon. This encompasses 5.9 million refugees, 706 schools, 543,000 students, 140 primary health facilities and more than 7 million patient visits per year. It's big. Last Tuesday, January the 30th, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres convened a meeting of the major donors of UNRWA. 17 of its donors have now cut their funding since the announcement on Friday that the agency had dismissed several of its employees who Israel has alleged were involved in the attack carried out by Hamas on October the 7th. According to Guterres, 12 employees were singled out by Israel, one of whom is dead. An internal investigation has been launched and its results are awaited by certain donors, including Australia, before deciding whether or not to continue their aid. This represents a race against time for the agency, whose operations risk being interrupted for lack of funds as of the end of February. According to UNRWA, $500 million American has been frozen to date out of an estimated pledge of $1.17 billion, including for emergency needs in Gaza, where the agency is the main provider of aid to civilians under Israeli bombardment. The agency has some 30,000 employees in the Middle East, including 13,000 in Gaza. So I'd like to just talk about a bit of a timeline that occurred. So the ICJ court ruling was at 4 p.m. on the 26th of January. The next day, on the 27th of January, Philippe Lazzarini, the Commissioner General of UNRWA, sent out a press release. In it, he said 9 countries have, as of today, temporarily suspended their funding to UNRWA. This is like the next day. These decisions threaten our ongoing humanitarian work across the region, including and especially in the Gaza Strip. It's shocking to see a suspension of funds to the agency in reaction to allegations against a small group of staff, especially given the immediate action that UNRWA took by terminating their contracts and asking for a transparent, independent investigation. The United Nations Office of Internal Oversight Services, the highest investigative authority in the UN, has already been seized of this very serious matter. In its ruling yesterday, and this is still, I'm still quoting from Philippe Lazzarini. In its ruling yesterday, the International Court of Justice ordered that Israel must take immediate and effective measures to enable the provision of urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance to address the adverse conditions of life faced by Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. These measures are aimed at preventing irreparable damage to the rights of Palestinians. So currently, 18 states have announced the suspension of funding to UNRWA, including Australia, who paused funding of nearly $13.8 million the day after the ICJ ruling. In an email we received from our local federal member, Lisa Chesters, earlier this week, she states, Australia is using our voice to advocate for urgent humanitarian assistance to reach Palestinians in Gaza in desperate need and to address the protracted refugee crisis in the region. To that end, Foreign Minister Wong recently announced an additional $21.5 million in humanitarian assistance, taking Australia's total humanitarian contribution since this conflict began to $46.5 million. I'd like to know which organisations this money's going to. But she follows on to say, you may be concerned about Australia's recent decision regarding funding to the UNRWA. UNRWA does vital life-saving work and is the only United Nations body with a mandate to provide relief and social services to Palestinian refugees in the region. What we would like the current government to acknowledge is the fact that UNRWA was set up via the mechanism of UN Resolution 302 to address the displacement and famine after the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people in 1948 by Jewish Zionist militias. It was only supposed to be a stopgap measure until UN Resolution 194 had been completed. I'll read paragraph 3 from the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 194. It states, resolving that refugees wishing to return to their homes and live at peace with their neighbours should be permitted to do so at the earliest practicable date. This is 1948. And that compensation should be paid for the property of those choosing not to return and for loss of or of damage to property which under principles of international law or equity should be made good by the governments or authorities responsible. In the shadow of the ICJ ruling, it's my opinion that Australia is supporting a push to modify or erase yet another aspect of the 1948 ethnic cleansing of Palestine. Feel free, we're going to put this up on our Facebook site. Feel free to send a letter to Penny Wong. Feel free to send a letter to Lisa Chesters. This is really important because over time, over the years, the initial messages of the UN have been getting diluted. And this is a ploy to further dilute. Thank you.